Well, welcome back to the 22nd episode of the TundraCast, and today I'm joined by Just Shaden.
What's up, boys?
And before we start, let's wish a happy birthday to Shay.
Oh, thank you, Rossi. Appreciate it.
And it'll just be us two today, and we're going to be going over the Stanley Cup playoffs. Well, our predictions and everything. Uh,
Yeah, so the playoffs start, I believe, on Saturday. Even though there's a NHL regular season game going on that day, which is great scheduling by Gary Bettman.
it's the
But
best scheduling.
it's an amazing schedule. Why not have a playoff game scheduled on the same day as a regular season game? That makes all the sense in the world. But yeah. So if you're living under a rock, no, the playoffs this year are going to be structured a bit different. Instead of divisional format, it's going to be kind of seeded in a way. So it's still going to be it's 1v4, 2v3 in your division. But I believe whoever wins gets to face the higher or lower seed. It's something weird like that. I don't know how to
Yeah,
explain
so
it, but
so the way it works is it's going to be basically normal, but then when it gets to the final four, seeding will be determined by regular season standings. So,
yeah, right. So if the hot say if the well, say the top four teams are in the finals are Vegas, Toronto, um, Pittsburgh, and just say Florida. Vegas would play Florida, and Toronto would play Pittsburgh. So it kind of reminds me of the old format a bit before the new CBA came in 2014. But yeah, it's gonna introduce more interesting matchups, and you know what? This could be one of the best playoffs we've had in a while because there's a lot of rivals playing against each other,
yeah.
and there's a couple of series that are kind of rematches from ones we saw in 2019 or 2018.
Yeah, and especially with how like exciting last year was,
Yeah,
even though like a lot of people, say it's kind of like it wasn't as exciting because it was all in a bubble. I think that made it great.
I agree.
Um But let's just jump into this and we can start talking about our predictions. And is there a certain division you would like to start off with?
Let's start off with the Central.
All right, we'll start off with the
So,
Central.
so the first matchup I have here is Carolina and Rossi's team, Nashville. You know what? I'm going to let you make your prediction first since you're the expert here. So,
Well, I'm gonna say Nashville had started the season very, very poorly, but we picked it up in March and we kept going. And there was a while where I was like, yeah, we're not making it, but we did make it. And if you look at the season matchup between Carolina and Nashville, it doesn't look the best until you look at the final two games.
yeah.
Because that's where it really shows. So in game 55, that's where we clinched. You had Saros starting with everybody, and neither team had rested their starters,
Yeah.
and we had won 3-1 with Cunnin scoring twice and then Hala burying the empty net goal for the win, and Saros only allowing one goal. And then you had game 56, which might have been Pekarene's last game as a Nashville Predator, where
Yeah.
we actually rested a lot of our starters. Like we had rested Howla, Saros, Yarncroak, Granlund, Ellis, Sissons, Cunnin, Yossi, Ekholm, Arvidsson. So we had rested a lot of people for that game, and we still won 5-0.
Right. Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, especially since, as again as in Game 55, Carolina was not resting any of their starters.
Yeah.
And I know people might be saying, well, Carolina had nothing to play for, but they did technically because of the way seeding works this year when it gets to the Final Four.
Yeah, that's true. Like you want to finish as high as possible this year. Like usually the league standings doesn't really matter until the Stanley Cup Finals. But I mean, this year you want to get as high as you want.
Yeah, this
If
year it
you're
really does matter.
Right. Like if you're a sixth place team in the NHL, you can still potentially get a home ice depending on how the playoffs go. Like, you know, I know I said this about the last night's game about Edmonton Montreal, but for Edmonton it was still kind of big because right now I think they're sitting at 10th in the league. Like, they need, if they want to get home ice throughout the playoffs, they need to get as many points as they need as they can. So,
Yeah, so
you
you're
know,
you're currently sitting at 11th with 72 points.
yeah, 11th, and I think we're like 1 point behind Boston or Tampa Bay or
Yeah,
something like
one
that.
point behind Boston, and then three behind Tampa.
Like, yeah, like it's actually a bigger deal than people don't realize. So,
Yeah, so
for Nashville to win like in a meaningful game like that, it's really huge, especially heading into a 7 game series against
yeah,
the team you
th
faced.
yeah, those last two wins against Carolina really showed that, when it comes down to it, we can actually play and play well against Carolina, a team we hadn't beat the entire season before those last two games. And I think that these two wins kind of prove some momentum for us, especially. But we'll see when it gets to that day that our series starts.
Yeah.
But for my prediction, I'm gonna have Carolina in 6. I think Nashville will be able to steal 2 games, especially with how just electric Bridgestone Arena gets. Like, if you were watching Game 56 of the regular season for the Predators, where Rene was starting, every single whistle, this crowd was giving him a standing ovation, and it really just gave us the energy to score those 5 goals that we scored and help get Rene the shutout.
Right.
So I think with especially with Saros, who's been the best goalie statistically since March, and just how great he's been this season, and especially with Nashville at home, I think we'll be able to steal 1 or 2 games from him. So that's my prediction is Carolina in 6.
I have Carolina winning the series too. I saw NHL discussion on Instagram say it's gonna be a sweep. I don't think so. Um, UC Saros is a top 10 goal in the league right now. He'll probably be top 5 in the future if I'm being honest. I mean, him and Askarov in a couple of years, that's gonna be deadly. But yeah, I think Saros is capable of stealing a game or two. I think Nashville has enough depth up front to score. I don't know about their big contract guys stepping up, but you have guys like Forsberg, you have guys like Arvidsson on the back end. On the back end, you have a Norris Trophy guy and Yossi. You have Ekholm, you have Ellis. Like there's good players in Nashville. I just don't think it's an easy matchup for them. So you know what? I'll agree with you. I think Carolina 6 is possible.
Yeah, I think the big thing for Nashville is we need to figure out how to control the penalties we take, and we need to figure
Yeah.
out because a big problem for us this entire season was special teams, and it got better to a certain point, but we need to keep it getting better because that's what's going to determine this matchup, a
Right.
big part of it, and or I should say. And when it comes to players, it's gonna be the bottom lines for Nashville that really come through, like that beast line with Olivier, Jeannot, uh, Sissons, and Trennan. Those four, really made a huge difference throughout the entire year.
Right.
But I don't think that Nashville can take 4 games from this Carolina squad,
Yeah.
especially just how dynamic that Carolina squad is.
Yeah, you know what? Like, it's gonna be really hard. And spoiler alert, like I have the Canes in my Stanley Cup Finals. I think they're that good of a team. One thing I question about Carolina heading in this season was the goaltending, but Mrazek has been great. Nedeljkovic has been amazing. Even Reimer's is a solid goaltender, so that pushed my doubts away. I just think
Yeah, when
they're a legit threat, and they have an elite back end. Uh, their bottom six could use some work. It's not the best, especially that fourth line, but they have a lot of talent up front to really like to score. They can defend. They have the goalie. I think they're Stanley Cup contenders.
yeah, and especially when you have Nedeljkovic and Mrazek, who, if they had played more games, neither playing 25 games in the season, if they had played more games, they would have won the Jennings
Yeah,
instead of Leonard and Fleury. And I think that, especially with just how let's let's just get this out of the way. How scary Carolina looks. Like there wasn't a point in time where I was like, yeah, Carolina's not the best. Like they have shown that they are one of the best, if not the best team in the league.
right. All right, so let's go to our next playoff prediction. I this is what I'm most excited for. Besides the Oilers, of course, the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning
Oh, the
uh,
Battle of Florida.
starts this Sunday. Actually, 3 days away. Yeah, I legit can't wait for this. This is gonna be such a great matchup. And honestly, I think Tampa wins it, but I think it's gonna be another 7 game series. I think it's gonna be a 7 game series. I think a lot of people are kind of underestimating Florida, if that makes sense. If they start Drager or Knight, this is a long series. If they start Bobrovsky though, it's gonna be over quickly, like a 4 or 5 game series. Um, I love Florida up front. They have a Selkie winner, Barkov. They got Huberto, who's amazing. Gusev, Sam Bennett has been great there.
Never
Patrick
thought I'd
Horn,
hear that in my life.
I
Sam
know,
Bennett being
right?
great in a sentence, but it's true.
It's weird. Patrick Hornquist has been doing solid. I mean, they just have so much skill
And they might be
everywhere.
getting Ekblad back too.
I know, yeah, Ekblad should be back for the playoff. Well, not the start, but probably towards the middle.
Yeah.
Um, Carter Verhaeghe against his old team, and Verhaeghe's been amazing. Like, like, and you know what? Even without Ekblad, their defense is still pretty solid. I mean, they have Yandel. They got Brandon Montour. Mackenzie Weegar has been fantastic this season. Like, there's like the goaltending's only like goaltending's the one spot where I look at and I'm like, okay, so what's gonna happen here? Like once again, if they start Bobrovsky, which they shouldn't, it's gonna be over. But if they can put in the young hot Drieger or Spencer Knight, they have a chance to beat Tampa Bay, and I don't think Tampa Bay is as good as their record shows this season. Honestly, that's
No,
what
I
I think.
I go ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry. Like Vasilevsky has been amazing, but besides that, like Victor Hedman, who's injured by the way, honestly, I don't think he has been that good this season. He's gonna win in Norris because his name is Victor Hedman. He shouldn't win it though. Um,
No,
I
Barry's
mean
winning the Norris.
Tyson Barry. You know what? They are gonna get Kucherov back, which is gonna help them a lot. But it just seems like this is the year where Tampa is going to lose in the first or second round. But you know what? It wouldn't really matter since they won the cup anyways. But you know what? I could see Florida taking this far. I'm gonna say it's a 7 game a series win for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think it's a 6 or 7 game win for Florida, and the reason I say that is, you look at Tampa, and yeah, they have a solid, forward core, but that defense it's just so. I don't know. Like, yeah, you can point to the fact that McElhaney isn't really a NHL caliber backup goalie or something, but they just let so many high danger shots from places that you shouldn't be allowing shots to happen. And I don't know if Vasilevsky can really keep stopping all that, especially with how just dynamic and overpowering that Florida offense is.
Yeah,
Like especially just as you said, like Hedman has just it's just I've when I was watching uh the 2 games uh where we played Tampa Bay, when we played against them, Vasilevsky, we got shut out 3-0. And that was a game where it was like we had a lot of chances, but we couldn't break Vasilevsky.
right.
When they started McElhaney, we won 7-1.
Yeah, like once again, like you know what? I'm gonna be honest. Before like these past couple of seasons, I kind of thought Vasilevsky was overrated. Especially in their 62 win season, Vasilevsky only had a .917 save percentage. Like it's not great for a record-setting team. But this year, he's really made me eat my words. He's definitely worth that 9 mil or 8 mil contract. And you know what? He could steal some games, but you know what? I can see your point where you're coming from. It's going to be a good series. It's going to be very close. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida wins it, but I just think, especially with the big boost of Kucherov, I just think Tampa barely gets this win. Like I think Game 7 could go to double overtime. Like I think it's going to be
Yeah.
that close.
Yeah, I just don't see how, even though Vasilevsky's, I'd say the best goalie in the world right now,
Yeah,
I don't see how he can consistently stop, especially with how lackluster that defense is. I don't see how he can stop that just overpowering Florida offense.
right. All right, next playoff matchup. One I think is going to be pretty. One I think is going to be kind of lopsided, and one I think will be over in 5 games. Pittsburgh and the Islanders. I'll just say this right now. I think the Islanders win. Um, the Penguins are way more talented, but it's not like. But if 2019 showed, the Penguins got swept, and they lost last year in the plains. And you know what? You don't count out Barry Trotz's system. He's the best coach in the league. He can make crappy teams look amazing, like the Islanders. They're not a very good team, but they're just carried by a good system. And I think just because of that and the season Florimov had, the Islanders won in 5.
Yeah,
Just because of Barry Trotz.
yeah, I agree with you. Barry Trotz's system is built for the playoffs, and especially with how hot Varlamov has been, and of course, his Trotz's system is built for playoff hockey,
Yeah.
and I don't see how Pittsburgh can keep up with the Islanders, especially because Pittsburgh doesn't have many, grinder type players, while the Islanders do.
Yeah, right. And you know what? Like, there's still some decent players on the Islanders too, like Matthew Barzell, Josh Bailey, Anders Lee, Ryan Pulak. Like, you know what? As much as I hate Pittsburgh, and a certain Penguins fans can get mad at me in the Discord for our prediction. I mean, it's just the truth. Like, it's nothing against the Penguins and how great they are because they are a good team. I just, every year when someone bets against the Islanders, like we always do, they make it far. And I just think you can't doubt out their system. So I think it's gonna be pretty. I think it's gonna be over pretty quickly, and that will make the Penguins make some panic moves and trade 2 first round picks in exchange for Scott Lawton. So
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I have the Islanders in 6.
okay, okay. So next East matchup, this one's gonna be pretty good. I think Washington and Boston. Um, I would just say right now, I do not trust Washington's goalies.
Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson. The battle of the pests, eh? Brad Marchand and Tom Wilson.
Tom Wilson is gonna just injure the entire other team.
Oh, we got Siakam.
Hey, welcome Siakam.
We're just starting our Boston Washington prediction. But when Siakam gets his mic, I'll keep talking until Siakam gets his mic. But you know, I, I don't trust Washington's goaltenders. I do not like Samsonov right now. I do not trust Van Sek, and I do not trust Craig Anderson. You know, like I don't trust Washington's netminders whatsoever. I think with the emergence of Swayman and Rask back, especially with the addition of Taylor Hall and who has a Curse Lazar on the back end, and Mike Riley. I like Boston's odds against Washington. I think it's a 6 game series win for Boston. I just hate the goaltenders in Washington right now.
Yeah, like Vanacek and Samsonov have been good, but with the behavioral issues from Samsonov and just Vanacek looking a bit shaky lately,
Yeah,
I you know, unless Anderson decides to go 2017 Eastern Conference Final Anderson, where he helps carry the Senators to the conference finals and almost into the Stanley Cup final, then I don't see how Boston doesn't win this series.
right. If you're, yeah. So right now, Siakam joined. His mic isn't on. I want to hear his thoughts on it.
he's just.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Hey boys, can you hear me?
Yeah,
What's up?
yeah.
What it do? It's good to be back. It's been a minute. We're on Washington and Boston, yeah.
Yep.
Uh, as a Leafs fan, I'm gonna try my best to not be biased.
Right.
As a Leafs fan, that's
As
impossible.
much as I hate to say it, and I hate to say it.
Yeah. It's pretty obvious.
It's got to be Boston.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you ask me before the trade deadline, I think I might have been more sold on potentially Washington winning this series simply because I didn't trust Boston's bottom nine. We
Right.
talk about teams with bottom six issues. Without Taylor Hall's addition to that top six, I had real issues with Boston's second line and their ability to score goals if Washington was able, or a potential playoff matchup was able to shut down that first line. But
Yeah.
since Hall has joined and that second line has really taken off with that first line, and then you add in Boston's far superior goaltending, I hope they lose in the second round. I really do, because I don't want the Leafs to have to ever even have the chance of playing these guys.
Leafs aren't even
But-
making it to the final.
Slander.
Yep.
But we'll get to that later. But
yeah, we'll get to that.
yeah, I think Washington is not good. Their goaltending is not going to stack up over a
Yeah.
7-game series.
And
Um,
something that's not purely statistical or anything. Maybe the drama around Washington lately, kind of distracts them from playing hockey. With Samsonov, Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson, a lot of drama coming out with them potentially looking to trade Kuznetsov, Samsonov
Yeah.
being benched for whatever, and then Wilson just being Tom Wilson.
I'm excited to see Brad Marchand and Tom Wilson go at it.
I mean, in fairness to Marchand, he's really cleaned up his act the last couple of years. So I mean, I think Wilson's really starting to take that new, like that Marchand 2.0, in the sense of pretty much every fan base hates him except
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah, and it's not like it was ever undeserved for people to hate him. Like Marchand was known for slew footing and diving and such, and
Licking.
Yeah, I mean that's how Boston's just gonna win. They're just gonna lick Ovechkin, But it's just so jarring to think that Wilson, after what he did to Panarin, is gonna be playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, he should have been spending at least a couple games.
Like the thing is, like, this is off topic, but the fact that Tom Wilson is going to be able to play in the playoffs is just unbelievable to me. I know you guys we already had an entire video talking about the Tom Wilson situation, but oh my god, how does a repeat offender who just did that to one of the superstars in this league not get at least one game?
It's embarrassing.
At least one game. What precedence? He's a repeat offender. What kind of precedence do you need? And there's gonna be these boomers who say, "Oh, you just don't appreciate the game. This is how." Yeah. Back then, when star players got injured by these like random scrubs, right? Like, people weren't outraged back then. People weren't outraged by Bertuzzi. It
was bad.
Don't even get me started on this. I'm gonna go on a whole tirade.
You're just not understanding. This. Hockey is. This is hockey. Hockey's a contact sport. That doesn't mean that hockey is a sport where you see someone throw and slam someone's head into the ice. Just because Crosby did it to Subban doesn't mean it's okay for everybody else in the league to do it.
You all know Sidney Crosby gets special treatment in the league.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go into our next two playoff series in the North. We'll start off with the Canadiens and the Leafs. I'll let Siakam go first here.
All right. I know first round Toronto, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, In every single playoff series that the Leafs have played, since with this regime, even back in 2013, before we had the whole Big Four, I wasn't really confident that this team, like even last year with Columbus, I wasn't really sold that the Leafs were gonna beat that team because there were just so many flaws that the Leafs had entering that play-in from the
Yeah.
year, and the way just Columbus played, that defensive mindset, how physical they were, I just didn't think the Leafs had the defense. I didn't think they had the depth. I didn't think they had the goaltending to win a series against a team as disciplined as Columbus was.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, all right, Leafs in seven. Leafs in seven. And that's
7.
and I think that's surprising to a lot of people because I
Okay.
think people are expecting Toronto to run over the
Okay.
Habs, right?
I need to ask you
Um,
something. Are you saying Leafs in 7 just because you don't want to seem biased, or
no. This is my rationale.
all right? Let's hear it.
For the same reasons that I had reservations about the Leafs' ability to beat Columbus last year, I see some of those same things with this Montreal team. Now, obviously, Montreal is dealing with a lot of injuries, right, which
Yeah.
could make this a much faster series, right? Danault's probably going to miss at least half the series, if not the entire series. We don't know when Gallagher is coming back, but I'm saying Leafs in 7 with this mindset of the Habs are a very physical team.
Yeah.
We know that they've had difficulties scoring goals, especially when they get down late. And their ability to score on the power play hasn't been, tops in the league. But at the same time, the Leafs power play also hasn't been that great. And I think what it comes down to is in playoff hockey when, refs swallow their whistles. Let's be honest. The refs swallow their whistles in the playoffs. Skilled teams.
They don't swallow their whistles when it's a puck going into the net in the finals with a certain team in Pittsburgh. No, they just pull that out right away.
But in general, refs tend to swallow their whistles when it's playoff.
Sorry about that.
I mean, the Leafs have been on the receiving end of that in games against Boston, in series against Boston. And that's not to say that, I'm complaining, because good on Boston, right? If refs are going to swallow their whistles in the playoffs, then you do what it takes to win those games. And Boston had the personnel to win the games with that physicality, with a couple late hits, with that extra edge, right? And the Leafs just didn't have that. And the Leafs have some of that this year, but you look at the total hits in the matchups between Montreal and Toronto this season, and I think Montreal has over 100 more hits in those games than Toronto does, right? And so with that physical edge, we look at guys like Josh Anderson, and Josh Anderson has, contrary to a lot of Habs fans' beliefs, Josh Anderson has not been that good for Montreal this year.
No. He had a hot start. He had like 10 goals in 15 games, and he's had like 7 in like 40 cents.
I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, if you look at what they gave up for Anderson, you could say that
they won the deal, but we'll talk about that contract.
Max Domi has the same amount of points as Josh Anderson, by the way.
Oh wow, really?
No,
I didn't even know that. Wow, that's crazy.
So, yeah, it's bad.
So, I mean, Josh Anderson hasn't been good for the Habs this year, but Josh Anderson is one of those players, no matter how bad he's been in the regular season, you look at him and you go, that's a playoff hockey player.
Yeah.
That's a guy who's, no matter what, is built for playoff hockey. He hits, he's fast, and he's aggressive, right? And you look at a lot of those guys on that team, they're not necessarily the most skilled, right? But they hit. They're willing to hit. They're willing to finish checks. And I think the physicality and Toronto not getting the benefit of the call from referees is going to play more of a balance in a series like this, where the Leaf speed isn't going to play as much of a role because you're going to be able to hold. You're going to be able to hold on to a player for an extra 4 seconds after he lets go of the puck. A hook isn't going to get called here and there. You can get away with a trip or a little bit of an elbow.
Yeah, and if you if you're wearing a certain 87 on a certain Ducks, on a certain Penguins team, you can slam someone's head into the ice and it won't be called, but the other person can just look at you and it'll be called. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
PTSD.
PTSD.
And then they just blow the
whatever.
whistle when a puck's going into the net, and then they call an offside that wasn't off. Okay,
Then
I'm
Horford
done.
scores with 1 minute left and win the cup.
Stop it.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
So,
talk
like, in general, I think the way playoff hockey is refereed, Montreal is going to benefit from a slower paced game. And I think Toronto is not really used to, despite having some adversity this year and being forced to play into a slower paced game, I think it's going to require a bit of an adjustment for them too. This roster, and not to mention, this roster hasn't played fully healthy together all season.
Yeah.
Foligno hasn't played with Hyman, right? Like, Spezza and Thornton have been in and out of the lineup due to health. Kurt Engvall is not even a staple. We don't know what the final team's roster is going to look like. I think there's going to be some chemistry that needs to be sorted out. And one thing you can never count out is playoff price.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And you throw all those together, and
Wait,
I wouldn't be surprised.
is Price
if
supposed to be back for game 1?
Yeah, he's back. He's back.
He's going to
Oh.
be back.
Oh, that's
You
good.
put all of those factors together. A lot of teams are saying Toronto in 4, Toronto in 5. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this is a 6 or 7 game series.
Right. And you know what? That's my main reason too. It's Carey Price. I know he has been the best in the regular season for quite some time, but you saw what he did last year against the Pittsburgh Penguins. He stole that series.
The Philadelphia
yeah.
Penguins.
And you know what? I think Galley is back in the playoffs. They'll have Shea Weber back. Depending on what's happening with Duran right now, he could be back. Like, you know what? As much as I hate the Leafs, they are the favorites to come out of the North. But I do think they'll have a hard time against this with this Habs team. The Habs for some reason have sucked against Calgary, Vancouver, and Ottawa, but they played well against Edmonton and Toronto this season.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because of that defense, slow, hard-hitting game. So, you know what? I'm going to say the Leafs win it. I do think it will be in 6 games. But, yeah, I think Montreal is being very underrated by a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I think Leafs in 5.
Nah. 3 very different takes.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, I can't blame that, Rossi. I mean, a lot of people, they look at that Leafs roster from top to bottom.
No, it's
right?
not. It's not on the Leafs roster where I think Leafs in 5. It's more on Montreal, to be honest.
Wow.
I've not been super impressed with their defense, and I've not been super impressed with, even though playoff Carey Price is playoff Carey Price, I've just not been super impressed with him this year either.
Which is fair.
Those are definitely fair takes. I think the thing is with Montreal, the only reason that I'm sold on Montreal is I think their style of play, out of all 4 teams that have made the playoffs in the North, I think Montreal is the only team that really benefits from playoff style hockey.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the only reason why I feel like the Leafs are good. And the Leafs injuries with Carey Price, I think are the only reasons that this series could go like longer. If even one of those 3 things don't pan out, like Carey Price isn't like Carey Price in the playoffs, right? Like this could be a 5-game series, right?
Yeah.
If even one of those 3 things, fall apart, or the Habs aren't as physical as I expect, right? Or the Leafs do mesh instantly and don't need time to develop chemistry, right? This could be over in 5. Like Rossi's not wrong in saying that. I just have some reservations, and also mainly because I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt again.
You make a very good point in the fact that in the North, the only team that is built for the playoffs is Montreal.
Yeah.
Like the other teams aren't built for the playoffs at all.
No.
Really, I mean, Toronto is probably, I would say, the second most equipped just because of the deadline acquisitions and some of the offseason moves that they made. But it's not like a team mentality. You don't look at Toronto and you go, that's a tough team, right?
No.
When you look at Boston, right, especially like the prime, like early 2010s Boston Bruins, when you look at their star players, Milan Lucic, Brad Marchand, Bergeron, Nathan Horton, right, Krejci, right, Chara. Those guys were all heavy hitters. They were all their star players, but all of them hit, right?
Yeah,
Toronto's not like that.
Yeah, and it's actually quite interesting because in the regular season, there's zero need for any grit. But once it hits playoff hockey,
You need grit.
you need
You
grit,
need a lot.
and
You need it. You need
And I
it.
think
each
and
division
I
has the one standout of tough team. In the Central you have Nashville because we've been tough and gritty all year. That's how we got here. And then in the East you still have Boston, and I guess uh,
Isles.
Islanders. In the North you have Montreal, and we'll get to the West later.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's one of the main. Actually, you know what? I might just include this into our next series, which is Winnipeg Edmonton.
Yeah.
Just speaking about Edmonton, I think that's one of the main reasons why they got Dmitry Kulikov. They need more grit on the back end. I mean, Kulikov's over 200 pounds. He's 6'2", 6'3". Like he's a defensive third pair guy who's built for the playoffs. And just speaking about the Oilers, I'm gonna be honest. This can literally go either way. For some reason, and I've been tracking this. Like, I don't know why this is, but ever since 2017, when Hellebuyck became Winnipeg's full-time starter, he has a below 900 save percentage and like a 3 goals against average against the Oilers. It's insane. And especially this season, I think he gave up 6 goals 3 times against us. And this is a Vezina caliber guy. And I haven't been impressed with the Jets this season. Their defense sucks. Their bottom 6 is really weak. I mean, hell, their top 6 is amazing, but you look at their top 6 and you look at Edmonton's top 6, who has McDavid and Draisaitl. The two, one's the best player in the world, and the other one's a top. You can probably argue top 5. I'd say.
He's definitely top 5 for me.
Yeah,
I mean, he's definitely top 5 for me.
Yeah, 2 top 5 players in the league, and for me, I think this comes down to one thing. Whoever wins the series is going to win because of this one thing: goaltending.
Oh yeah,
If Hellebuyck plays like he has against the Oilers all season, this is a quick series. If Mike Smith falters after the incredible regular season he just had, the Jets win. This could go either way, and my heart is not ready for it because this is gonna be such a fun series. There's so much speed. There's gonna be no defense. Each game might be like 5-3, and I'm here for it. And I'm just saying this right now. I bet you Connor McDavid is going to be like 2 times as good as he was in the season, just because you know how much he wants to win in the playoffs and how much failure he's had in Edmonton so far. He's going to go off, and if the dry line gets reconnected, if a young guy like McLeod starts to get going, I'm really confident in the Oilers. I think it's a 7-game series, and I'm trying not to be biased, but with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I think this team learned a lot from the Chicago series. I think the Oilers win this in 7. The Jets could win this easily too, but I just think with the momentum they're on right now, like they're 6-1 this month. Like they've beaten pretty good teams this year, and you know what? I think the Oilers win in 7. I think it's gonna be close as hell.
Another note, McDavid has scored more points in the last month than any New Jersey Devils player has scored in the entire season.
Which is insane.
Oh, New Jersey's had a tough year. It's been a tough year to be a Devils fan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while I was saying Leafs or Habs in 7, like Leafs in 7, it was really more Leafs in 6 or 7 for me. Right?
Yeah.
This is a game I think, like the Toronto series, could either be over in 5 games, depending on how things go, or it could go all the way to 7. And I'm more inclined to say that it's going to go to 7. I think this is going to be a 7-game series as well. And the reason I think it's going to be 7 rather than 5 is because I don't trust either team's goalie.
Oh yeah, same.
To consistently be good for a 4 or 5 game stretch.
Yeah.
Right.
I trust Mike Smith to play amazing 4 out of every 7 games, right? But I also expect him to be absolute garbage for 2 or 3 of them, right?
Yeah.
This is nothing new. Mike Smith, when he is on,
he's awesome.
Night, he is elite. He was a Vezina goalie. When he is not on, Oilers fans want to cut him. They want to trade him. They want to release him, send him to the AHL, right? And with Hellebuyck, on a good night, he's very good. He's good on most nights. He's amazing against most teams.
Right.
But he just can't seem to get it together against Edmonton. And he just can't seem to get it together against this team and these two players. He
Yeah.
cannot stop. He cannot stop Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl to save his life. I will say, I think you're underrating Winnipeg's top 9 a bit. You say their bottom 6 isn't very good. I think their third line is good. I have a lot of doubts about their fourth line, but I think they got a good third line. They got Cobb, they got Lowry, who's pretty good, and they got Perreault. That's not a bad third line, right? That's a very serviceable third line. What I will agree with you on, and this is something that I have to walk back because earlier when I was talking to a bunch of people a couple months ago, my take on Winnipeg's blue line was they're not amazing, but they're not bad. I am so wrong. Winnipeg's defense is so bad. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Their defense is so bad it makes Tampa's defense look amazing.
And Tampa's defense actually has struggled this year. So,
yeah, it has.
Yeah,
like Sergachev's taken a step back.
I kind of ripped on Tampa's defense earlier.
Oh yeah, did you?
Yeah, not as much as I rip on Binnington. But that might be a spoiler, by the way.
Oh yeah.
That's the thing with this. That's the thing with this Winnipeg blue line. You look at the teams that Winnipeg has struggled against this season. Really, it's been Edmonton and Toronto.
Yeah.
And you look at games that Hellebuyck has struggled mightily this season. It's been against Winnipeg, and the last month or so, it's been Toronto. And why is that? Both of these teams have premier, top-of-the-line offensive talent. You have 2 top 5 players in the NHL in McDavid and Draisaitl, and you have 2 top 10 guys in Matthews and Marner. Marner, I think, is top 10 this season. But he's in that 10-15 range, right? In terms of offensive producing forwards. And Winnipeg's defense is not built to stop these kinds of guys. Look at their top 4. They got Morrissey, Pionk, Forbert, and whoever that fourth guy is that they want to on any given night, right? How many of those guys are built for defending, like playing defense?
Probably just Forbert.
Forbert, right? Pionk's he's not bad, but you don't want him playing. You don't want him as your matchup defensive pairing against McDavid or Matthews or Tavares or Draisaitl, right? Like that's not the guy you want out there. And you put in that defense in front of Hellebuyck, who has struggled against Edmonton this season.
Yeah,
it's either Oilers in 5 or Jets / Oilers in 7. I think the Oilers win it in 7, but I wouldn't be surprised if Winnipeg wins it in 7. I think it's a 5 or 7 game series. I'm gonna have Edmonton. I'm gonna take Edmonton.
I think you know what? I think it's gonna be Edmonton in 6 because as we said before, neither team are very they're not very grindery, and while Winnipeg does have more capabilities to be the more forceful grinder team.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be a usual playoff series in hockey. I don't think it's going to be more grindy. I think because not very team are very grindery, I think this series is going to be more skill based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be a fun series.
Yeah, and while I don't trust Mike Smith at all to be consistent, I don't trust him at all to be consistent, but at the same time, Hellebuyck's defense is like, just, pass go, take $200, score 5 goals. Let's go.
You know what? I'm going to say this right now. Hellebuyck has really been struggling recently. If that carries over into the playoffs, they are screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair to Hellebuyck, Winnipeg has absolutely overworked him this season.
Oh, I agree.
And Winnipeg has no defense.
And Brossoit's a capable goaltender. I don't know why they haven't played him on a lot of nights to give Hellebuyck some rest.
Especially when Winnipeg was solidly in the second seed, right?
Yeah.
Like, this was just like 3 weeks ago, guys. Winnipeg was like the bona fide, like everyone was talking about Winnipeg was the number 2 team or they're like, this is the second best team because they got 3 Lions that can roll on offense. They got a Vezina goalie, and we know how goalies can bail a team out in the playoffs. Winnipeg's the second best team in the North. Then Hellebuyck just falls off a cliff, right?
Yeah.
And what did you expect? You played Brossoit like 5 times this season, right? Like this man, like in a condensed season, you're throwing Hellebuyck in night after night after night. behind a blue line that, quite frankly, cannot limit chances, right? So he's got a heavy workload because like some games, right? Like if you're on a good defensive team, right? Like how Tuukka Rask was on those prime Boston Bruins teams. Like he played 60 games in an 82 game season, but really it's more like 40 because like half the games he plays, like Boston plays such good defense in front of him, like it's not really a strenuous workload. Right?
And the only team that I can think that comes close to overworking a goaltender would be Nashville and Saros.
This season,
yeah, this season where he was, he played every single game for an entire month because Rene didn't start for an entire month, so he was playing every single game, and it's not like he was making like 20 saves a game. He was making like 30, 40. There was one time where it was almost 50, and I think it did hit 50 twice.
Yeah.
But the big difference between Hellebuck and Saros is Saros is 25, 26.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hellebuck's like 28.
Helly's getting up there. I think and the wear and tear, we've seen it with guys like my team's goalie, Freddie Anderson, right? Like you can't play a guy that many games behind a blue line that bad. You can only do that for so many years before the guy's body just starts breaking down. Anderson, the last 2 years, has like his health just hasn't been there. He's always re-aggravating some sort of injury, and even when he's supposedly healthy and playing, the way he moves, like you can tell, like he's never quite like there. And so like Winnipeg is just, I do think that Winnipeg's forwards have the potential to be more physical and to amp up the physicality in the playoffs. But this is something that I believe in. I think defense really sets the tone physicality wise in the playoffs. And I don't think Winnipeg has that physicality on defense to really set the tone on finishing checks on guys like McDavid and Draisaitl in the playoffs. And that's where it really, I think, if you can't stop McDavid or Draisaitl, you can't stop the Oilers, especially if the bottom six like gets someone going. You don't even need the entire bottom six. You just need someone on Edmonton in that bottom six to get going.
And I'm gonna say this right now. Like last year in the play-ins, when James Neal played, he was point per game. Like even though a lot of the Oilers' bottom six guys are overpaid, they have veterans down there that has played in these meaningful games before. Chaselin's won a cup. Like he's played in the playoffs before. Last year he was pretty good in play-ins. So if they do somehow stop McDavid and Draisaitl, which is impossible because they're going to be on two separate lines playing like for 60-70% of the game, but if you let their bottom six guys go off, like once again this could be over quickly. And that's the thing with Winnipeg. I just don't trust their defense. Like Josh Morrissey is like Tyson Berry bad level defensively. Like they're both great with offense, but when it comes to defense, you can't trust them whatsoever. And majority of their defense are like third pair guys. Forber's a third pair guy. Jordy Benn's a third pair guy. Tucker Pullman should be in the AHL. Like it's not good. And Pionk's good.
Pionk's their only two-way defenseman, to be honest. Like that should be playing playoff hockey.
And that's why I'm so shocked that Winnipeg didn't really go out to get a proper defense at the deadline.
I mean, they tried for Oleksiak, and they didn't get him for some reason. And then they tried.
They should be aiming higher than Oleksiak.
And then they tried for Ekholm, and we were like, no.
I mean
Winnipeg should have traded it first.
I agree.
Without a doubt. Like this? In a draft like this is what like a lot of people were like really critical of Toronto for trading a first for Nick Foligno, especially when a guy like Taylor Hall was on the market. But I go, if you're a contending team this year and you really want to give your team a chance, trade your first round pick. I don't care. Like as long as you get a top 6 player or a top 4 defenseman, trade your first round pick. It doesn't matter. Like especially if you're like a cup contending team or a team that wants to compete for a cup, like you trade your first. It's going to be a late first in a shit draft year.
Yeah, but
garbage draft year.
You see, you're wrong on that though,
because
the Nashville Predators were able to acquire the best player in the world, named Eric Goodbranson, for a 7th. You know he has
50%.
He has a point with us, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what?
Damn.
You know what? I'm changing my predictions. Predators in 4, Erica Branson 600
Okay.
points.
Okay. You know, you know what? To end off the Winnipeg thing, I'll just say this. I saw this post on Instagram. The Jets are 4-10 after the trade deadline. That's the worst record in the NHL. The Oilers have the fifth best. The Oilers have the fifth best.
Who has the best record after the trade deadline?
I believe it was Colorado up, but I'll check right now.
Nah, I'm not surprised. They
I
finally
think it-
got healthy. They're
Yeah,
clicking.
I think it would be Colorado, then maybe Nashville has to be 2 or 3 on.
Nashville's got to be up there because they
Yeah.
went on a crazy run to get in the playoffs.
Yeah, like Saros
Okay.
has been
The
the
best one is Vegas.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Vegas, those two teams just feasted on the teams that were hot to start the year
Yeah.
that we thought could be playoff teams, and then just fell off the cliff half end of the year.
Right. But yeah, Winnipeg is dead last at 31st, 4-10.
Oh.
I mean, Winnipeg's held together by Hellebuyck, right? So
Yeah.
it's like
It's literally just Tampa, but with
even worse defense.
with worse defense and not as good forward core.
I mean, I think it's closer than we think, but I would take Tampa's offense forward core over Winnipeg's. But I think it's a bit closer.
Yeah.
I think Winnipeg's offense is pretty good.
All right, so time for the West. The thing with this is that the first and the second seed haven't been decided yet. So
well,
if
I
we're
mean,
if we're going, well, let's say this: if we're going off what the standings are right now, let's just say Colorado loses tonight. Because if I'm Colorado, you bench all your studs because it's against LA. Like, who really cares, right? But let's just say Vegas gets the top spot. They'll face St. Louis. So, in my opinion, that's a 5-game series. I hate Jordan Binnington. I think he's a terrible goalie.
Pennington. Okay. But before we continue on this, Colorado Bennington thing, it is confirmed that Jonas Johansson will be starting for the Colorado Avalanche. That could potentially give them the number 1 seed.
So Vegas got the top seed.
So
Jonas Johansson's such a bad goalie.
So Vegas got the top seed. Okay.
Okay. So, but first, we'll do both sides. We'll compare Vegas and St. Louis and Colorado and St. Louis since they can both potentially be number 1 seeds.
All right.
But I think no matter Vegas or Colorado,
the Blues are out.
The Blues aren't winning. I mean, you look at it. The Blues have 61 points. They're not. They're barely ahead of Dallas and New York and the Rangers.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, Dallas shouldn't even be there with their 80 million OT losses.
Yeah. I'll say this. Think about it this way: in 51, the only 2 teams in the NHL this season that made the playoffs with a negative goal differential are Montreal and St. Louis. And Montreal is in a rather top-heavy North Division with a lot of offense, right?
Yeah.
So allowing a lot of goals as a team who's more defensive-minded and doesn't win games by scoring goals is not that surprising. Like, Montreal having a negative goal differential in the North Division, I can accept.
Yeah.
I can forgive. St. Louis in a division with Anaheim, San Jose, and the Kings.
Yeah.
With a negative goal differential, making the playoffs. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I would be shocked if this series goes past 5. I would be very shocked.
I'd be shocked if it even goes past 4.
I mean, I think there's gonna be one game where Binnington gets his stuff together and the offense can give him a win.
Impossible.
Like, he'll only allow 2 goals and the offense will get 3 for him. But I think the rest of the series, he's gonna let in 3 to 4 goals a game, and I don't think the Blues are gonna be able to score enough on that Vegas defense to overcome that. But I'm gonna give him 1 game. I think Binnington gets his shit together for 1 game.
I'm not even giving him that. It's not just because of the, intense me making fun of him for 4 podcasts, but I just don't have any faith in any part of that St. Louis team. Each team before now, I've been able to look at one part of the team or at least one part of the team and been like, that could steal them a game or two, or maybe even 3 or 4, and they move on. Like that
Yeah.
could steal them something. There is nothing on that St. Louis team that makes me believe that they could steal even a game.
I mean, the only reason I think that there is optimism for St. Louis is they've been good the last 10 games. I mean, they've been the fourth best team in their division the last 10 games, but they're 6-1-3, right? Like they've been very good in the last 10 games of the season, right? But at the same time, you look at some of the teams that they've been playing, and I mean, the teams that they've beaten are the Kings, the Ducks, right?
That's so hard.
The Wild. The Wild are some good games, and they had one really good game again. They had a couple of really good games against the Avalanche at the end of April. Which I mean, if you're a St. Louis fan, is definitely like good, right? Like you want to see your team do well against some of these top teams. But I just don't see it. There's something about the St. Louis team that just doesn't jive me the right way. On paper, they should be good, but they don't play like it. I don't trust that power play. I don't trust that bottom six. I don't trust their goaltending at all.
Bennington.
At all. I don't trust their goaltending at all. I think he has one good game. I think the other games he's average to below average.
See, even if Bennington does have one good game where he does allow, let's say, like 2 goals or maybe even 1 goal, I don't trust that offense, especially on Grubauer or Fleury or Leonard at all. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To get something going and to win the game for him, right? To support his. I don't know. But St. Louis is just such a weird team to gauge because you look at that team on paper and you think like this should have been a shoe-in playoff team.
Okay.
Right?
Let me compare you to a team that looked amazing on paper last year. Last year's Nashville Predators.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah, so.
Fair.
And now this year, Nashville looked like ass on paper, and.
Well, they still are kind of ass.
Yeah, no, you're wrong. We have good Branson.
Oh yeah.
You're forgetting that. But yeah, there's just nothing on that St. Louis team that gives me confidence that they can steal even 1 or 2 games from.
And I'm gonna be honest. I don't really like their forwards except for O'Reilly and Perron. I like Tarasenko's always injured, which sucks because he's actually a damn good player. Mike Hoffman might be one of the most overrated players in the NHL. I mean, Robert Thomas has taken a step back. I know he was injured, but I think he's really taken a step back. Sammy Blais hasn't really taken a step up. I think Braden Shen has kind of fallen apart. There's just not one bright spot on that team, and maybe except for Kyrou. So, yeah, I think it's going to be pretty over quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last series, it's going to be, if we're going by what the standings are right now, Colorado and the Wild. And I honestly think that this could go 6 games or 7 games. I really like the Wild's team. I love, Kaprizov has been phenomenal. Cam Talbot has settled back in his starter's job. Kaapo Kakkonen has been a great backup. They have a damn good defense too, and they have a lot of depth. Like this is a pretty good team, and Dean Evason, their head coach, could win. The Jack Adams. And, with Colorado, I'm pretty sure McKinnon might miss game 1. So hey, there's an early advantage for them. And you know what? If Grubauer gets injured, and they have to play Dubnyk or Johansson because Francouz isn't playing, Colorado could be screwed. Yeah. So, it really depends what happens in the series. I mean, the Avs are heavy cup favorites, even though I honestly, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say the Avs are going to be the new Washington Capitals. I just have a feeling about that. But, yeah, I love Minnesota's team. I don't think they're good enough to beat the Avs. But you know what? I think it's going to be a respectful series. They're going to give them a hard time. I think it's a 6-game series for the Avs.
Yeah, I agree. 5 or 6 game series for the Avs or Vegas. I don't think that Minnesota can beat either team really.
I'm gonna go on a limb here. I believe in this Wild team, and I don't think that they can beat Colorado just because Colorado has so much star power on that
Yeah.
roster. But I'm a one up you, Shay.
Oh no.
I think this goes to a game seven.
Really?
Now hear me out. Hear me out. I know this sounds blasphemous. Colorado's a cup favorite. Minnesota has literally one guy I know on offense. Oh, they're so bad. I believe in this Minnesota team. I love the way that they play hockey. I really like that blue line that I think is super underrated and not enough people talk about. I mean, you like that blue line, that top four is really good, and then that bottom pairing's not bad. Like it's bad. It's not like Winnipeg's bottom pair. You know, like I legitimately feel that Minnesota's bottom pair could probably be Minnesota's second pair. I mean, Winnipeg's second pair. Minnesota's bottom pair. You know, like that's how much I like their defense. And you look at the games that Minnesota has played against the top teams in this division in Colorado and Vegas, right? There have been a lot of really respectable games. I think Minnesota's been blown out by Colorado maybe once. I think it was like a really bad game. It was like 8-0 for Colorado. But against Vegas, a lot of their games have been really close, within a goal, within 2 goals, especially against Vegas, right? Like all of their games have pretty much been decided between 1 and 2 goals, except the game in March when Vegas won 5-1, right? But outside of that, like those games against top teams, they've been like those games have been really close, and the same applies for Colorado against Minnesota. Minnesota's 3-5 this year against Colorado, and that's not that bad in 8 games. That's almost like with one, and especially since so many of those wins or losses were with such a small margin, you can argue that record could have easily been 500, 4-4, or Minnesota could even have a winning record in those games, 5-3. You don't know, right? But because of how well Minnesota has played comparative to St. Louis against the top teams in this division, which are star-studded, and how much I like their defense and how well I think Talbot is going to play behind that defense, this is gonna be like my call and shot. Like this is like everyone's expecting Minnesota to be out in 5 or 6. This is my shot right here. This is my call right here. They're going to a game 7.
Wow.
They're gonna go to a game 7 where anything goes. And I'm gonna have Colorado winning it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota pulls off a Columbus level upset in game 7. Well, Columbus swept, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Beating the overwhelming favorites. I have faith in this Minnesota team. I'm all in on them, but they lose in 7. So I'm all in, but not quite all in.
All
Close.
Right. And I guess to end off the podcast, what are your guys' Stanley Cup final predictions, and who do you think wins?
You know what? I'm gonna say this right now. I am not too sure because I don't know what the Final Four will look like, especially with how different the seeding is gonna be.
If you just have to give an early guess.
Early guess, I'm giving it to Vegas. Vegas versus Carolina.
Really? You know what, Ross? I agree. I say Vegas and Carolina. And
Vegas
honestly,
and Carolina, and then Vegas wins in 5 or 6.
I have Carolina in 6. I love the Canadiens.
They just what do you call it? They just seed the Final Four, right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Damn. Okay, let me take a look at these.
It is hard.
I just gotta figure out what are the 4 teams I think in each division that come out, and then seed them, and then okay. Because I wasn't actually expecting this. Well, I'm a Leafs homer, and I think my team has a chance to get into that Final Four.
No.
So I'm gonna have them in the finals because I'm a homer. Because I'm a homer, okay? Let me be a homer this one time, okay?
Wait, if we're being homers,
I think I'm generally unbiased when it comes to my team.
You are.
I can be aware of their flaws, but let me just be a fan instead of I'm a fan. We're 7-1-2 in our last 10. We're going to the playoffs hot. We're gonna build confidence by beating up on these scrubby Canadian teams. No offense, okay? We're gonna beat up on these teams. We're gonna have our confidence soaring high. We're gonna make the Final Four. And I do have Carolina. I think Carolina is gonna be that team.
Yeah.
I think Carolina makes it to the finals this year. I think this is their year with that young core. And as much as I love my Leafs, I think it's a 6-game series, but it's really not that close because the Leafs wins are going to be tight wins, and their losses are going to be astronomically bad losses.
Yeah.
So they're going to win. They're going to lose by multi goals, and they're going to squeak out 1 or 2 wins at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think everyone can agree that Carolina has such a deep team. And you know what? They're going to get better next year because they have so many good rookies. Like, they have one of the best prospect pools in the league. Like, they're going to be contending forever, it seems like.
The one weakness you could talk about for Carolina is their goaltending.
Yeah.
And oh my God, their goaltending is so good. Mrazek and Angelkovic are so good. Like,
yeah. Yeah, they're scary. They're really scary.
Yep.
But I think that does it. If you want to end it off, Rossi.
Yeah, so that'll be it for episode 22 of the TundraCast podcast. We'll be back
tomorrow
with should be tomorrow depending on when this gets uploaded. But we'll be back tomorrow with a interview. We won't say who with. Unless you want to.
No. Well, we'll just say he's come on the show before. So I mean, if that kind of gives a hint, there you go.
Yeah. And then maybe if we want to, we can come back after this round and do another prediction for that.
Yeah, sure.
See where we were wrong. See, we can do predictions for the thing.
Yeah. But thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.